Okay, in this session, now that we've put in all our openings and we've created our hardware items and set up our hardware sets, we're ready to cost the job. So we are going to explore, which I call recapping the job. So let's begin. Let's go to sign on. Go into estimating, job detail maintenance. Go into my test job, and we're going to do an F9, and the F9 is located in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. We'll do an F9, and we're into the recap request screen. We can only recap one product at a time. So if we're going to recap frames, we're only allowed to recap frames only. If doors only, and hardware or hardware only. So we have two options in recapping our frames. Is we put a Y for yes, we want to recap. Now, the system wants to know what material code. And if you recall, when we set up our opening items details, we gave a material code to the frame and to the door. And if the frame was aluminum, I used AL. If it's hollow metal, it's HM. If it's wood, it's WD. So I try to keep those material codes pretty blank. So in the recapping screen, the request is, well, what materials do you want me to recap? So we have an option in the middle of the screen here. We see that there are different types. You can call your material whatever you want. But if you leave the field for material code blank, the system will record or will recap everything, all the frames that are out there. So let's begin by hitting the Enter key. Okay, now in this screen, we have the recap. The system groups like items. And what we see on the top here on the left-hand side of the screen are the categories for this grouping. And it's quantity, type, opening width, opening height, jam width or gauge, elevation, wall type, rating, and alternate. So the system found in this job there are 3 openings that are 3 single 307/0s, 4 7/8. In the lower part of the screen is where we do all our pricing. And the product code field is basically the product code from that manufacturer's material or product that they sell. So we have aluminum frames, if you're buying Western Integrated or some of the other aluminum manufacturers, their product code would go here in this field. And if you're using a generic or you have your own inventory in-house item number or product code number, you would use it here. So in this case, I'm just going to call it ALF 3070 4 7/8. And if you'll exit over, there's a quantity of 3 of them. I'll give it a description. And bear in mind that the product code, quantity, and its description, we have a report out there that shows it as a quote, and this information would come out on your quote. Now we'll tab over to the unit cost. We'll leave the unit cost field blank, and we'll give it a list price. And let's say, for argument's sake, it's $250. So I put in 250, 00 for cents. We don't separate it because we want to simplify our data entry. And we'll field exit, and we'll give it a classification. The class codes are very critical for accounting purposes. And to look at what class codes are, we'll look at the lower right hand of the screen. It says F10 for openings or display openings. So I'm going to do a display openings, and we'll see that the 3 in question are openings 102, 103, and 104. And it obviously shows you the hardware set also. So we're going to do an F1 to return back to the recap screen. And then I'm just going to tab over back to the class code. And we set up the class codes to kind of make it simple. So aluminum frames are AF. If they were metal frames, it would be MF. If they were wood frames, they would be WF. So we kind of simplified it. Now the screen gives you up to 6 lines for product codes. If you had add-ons, freight, or whatever, you would use these additional lines to price the job. So we hit the enter key and it records it. And to move to the next grouping, we want to do an F5. And again, you look down at the bottom of the screen and you see the various function keys. So F5 is go to the next grouping. And the next grouping, there are 4 7/8, 30704, 20-minute frames. I can use the dupe key here to dupe everything on it, on that line. I'll hit the enter key, and it duped everything from the previous grouping that I keyed in. And I'm just going to use my arrow keys, and I said the difference in this grouping, it's the same as the first one, but it's 20-minute. So I use the tab key, the tab over. I use my arrow key to say it's a 20-minute frame, and then I'll tab over to the unit price, and let's say it's $275 as a list price. Field exit, and you'll notice that the class code is already in there for that grouping, and I hit the enter key. Now, once I finish, I'm going to go F5 to move forward, and it takes me back to the recap request screen saying that that's the only thing that, those are all the frames that are out there. Again, so to go in it one more time, I'll hit the enter key, I'll look it over, and I says, yes, everything looks correct. I'll do an F5 to the next grouping. If I want to see the 47 frames in question, I'll do an F10, and it shows me all the frames in question. I'll do an F1 to return back to the screen, and F5, and I'm done with the frame. So that ends this session. On the next session, we'll recap doors.